Looking for a response. Yes, perfect. Thanks, Jawahar. Sri Lakshmi, I can see you online. The video audible, right? And visible. Okay, great, great. Good afternoon. Yeah, so to begin with, the participant count is still not at yesterday's level. But to begin with, let me clarify something. So I am taking the class from home today. It is just a stopgap measure. Yesterday I was taking from the institute, and I had asked you, right, whether there is any disturbance, because there was some construction work going on in the building right next to ours. And during that process, because they were demolishing the building, the electricity line got cut to our building as well. So it might take a little bit of time for the repair to happen, which is the reason why this class is happening from here. Even the second class here would happen from a classroom setup, if I'm not wrong. Your second class is medieval history. However, it is being conventionally happening. It will happen that way. Okay. So economics class, at least from my end, it is just this one is a stopgap arrangement. Just for this class, it is like this. From the subsequent classes, we'll have it in the classroom itself. Just in case some of you find it inconvenient that I am taking from home and the classroom environment is not there. So that's why I'm clarifying. I hope you guys don't mind that. After that lengthy monologue, no response from your end. So I assume it's all right. Okay, let me share the board. Okay, thanks, Ashwin. Once again, as I told you yesterday, you can, if you want to, you can come online with the video. It is something that will give me a good response from your end. So one person is already there. The others can choose to come. Is the is there? I just turned on the fan. Is there a noise because of that from my end? Okay. All right then. So we'll continue from where we left off yesterday. Thanks, Lalit, for your response and Ashwin. Yesterday I had finished talking about the evolution of money. Okay, that was the topic yesterday. So this is complete. Next, we'll move on to what role does money play? Functions of money. This is the heading that we have to address. Functions of money. Right? So when you talk about functions of money, it essentially asks the question, why do people require money? And the answers to this question we have already discussed yesterday. When we discuss how money evolves, it is based on the needs or the role that money plays, that money evolves. So obviously the answers to this is very straightforward. If you can think of, you can answer. I'll wait for you to give me an answer. Why do you think, what do you think are the functions of money? You can type in. Very straightforward based on what we have discussed yesterday already. So ask yourself, what role does money play in your life? That is what is function of money, right? Correct, Sri Lakshmi. That's a good answer. That seems more like an answer from a textbook based on prior knowledge, or maybe it could be based on yesterday's discussion also. Either way. Correct, Anu. The same answer. Sri Lakshmi and Anu have given me the same answer, that it acts as a medium of exchange. All right. Correct. Very good. Sri Lakshmi, the second point is also correct, to evaluate the value of a product. So there are two sets, what we call as the primary functions of money, what we call as the primary functions of money. We'll classify it into two. The first one, it acts as a medium of exchange. What do we mean by money acting as a medium of exchange? It essentially says that we can buy things with money and we can get money when we sell things. So it acts as an intermediary between. remember from yesterday's story how you went to a middleman, you gave your product, that you are selling your product, okay, for which you will get money. And the one who's buying, so instead of giving a good, you might not have the good that they are looking for. So instead of that, you are giving money that you, so that they can go and buy whatever good they want from the market. So medium of exchange means buying and selling. The ability, it helps in buying and selling. It acts as an intermediary. That is what is called as medium. Medium means in between. Okay? It acts as a medium of exchange, or a channel through which exchange happens. Second function, second primary function is what we call as it is used for measuring value. It acts as a measure of value. It acts as a measure of value. So you say that there is, let's say, 1 kilogram of rice. 1 kilogram of rice. We ask how much is 1 kilogram of rice worth. So you might say 1 kilogram of rice is worth. Let me take something that is not divisible. Let us assume that 1 kilogram of rice is worth um, one pumpkin, let's say, or one coconut. Imagine in a village economy. Let's just assume. Okay, I got the spelling of coconut all wrong. I think it's right. So 1 kilogram of rice is equal to one coconut. If you require only half a kilogram of rice, okay, how much do you get? Half a coconut? How do you know whether you have got exactly half a coconut? Is it possible to split it? You may get small pieces, but we can't really classify it by saying that this is half a coconut. Okay? So that is a problem with respect to when you exchange in terms of commodities. Whereas if you have a situation where 1 kilogram of rice is equal to rupees, let's say rupees 30, and one coconut is also equal to rupees 30. Okay. Now what do you do? If you want only half a kg of rice, you can get it at 15 rupees. And if you have a coconut, you will get 30 rupees. So money becomes divisible as well. Money is easily divisible, but the commodities which we were using earlier were not easily divisible. You could not divide it into smaller units. Okay? And also you can put a value easily. Okay? For example, the value of rice increases slightly. So you say the value of money increases to 1 kg is equal to rupees 45, which means what? 1 kg of rice is equal to 1.5 coconuts. So the valuation becomes very complicated when you do not have something which is easily divisible. Okay, which is what is the role that money plays. It acts as a measure of value, easy measure of value. You can measure value of commodities in terms of other commodities also, like we said in terms of a coconut. But it is not very easy. It is not very convenient to do that. So it acts as a measure of value. We also call that money has a function of being a unit of account. It is actually the same meaning. Unit of account means what? You're trying to account. Accounting means measuring. It's the same word. But it acts as a unit means what? You've heard of SI units, right? How is distance measured? Distance can be measured in meters. Distance can be measured in kilometers, yards, okay? Any of these, or foot can be measured in any of these mechanisms. So this is the unit that we are talking about. These are the units that we are talking about. So how do we measure value? We are measuring value with a unit of the currency, the denomination, various denominations of currency, which is rupees, paise. These are the units of measurement. Rupee is a unit, paisa is a unit, and you have various denominations of currency. You do not have all 1 rupee. You have 1 rupee. Okay. In the earlier era, even today, you have the 50 paise. Sorry, 50 paise. Prior to that, you had 25 paise, 10 paise, and all those when the value of money was lesser, much lesser. Or sorry, the value of money was much higher. You had those things. But today, those 50 paise, 25 paise don't have much value. 50 paise is still there in circulation. But mostly it is 1 rupees, 1 rupee, 2 rupees. You have 5 rupees. You have 10 rupees. You have 20 rupees. Okay. You do not have a 30 rupee currency note, but you can get 30 rupees by just adding this and this. You don't have a 50 rupee note, but you can get it by adding this. You don't have a 11 rupee note, but you can get by adding this. which means that various combinations of value can be achieved. I'll just finish this. You have rupees 50 as a currency. You have rupees 100 as a currency. I know that all of you know it, but just to clarify, you have rupees 200 as a currency. You have rupees 500 as a currency, and you have rupees 2000 as a currency. Any value that we want can be achieved by a combination of all this. This is what we mean by unit of account. The fact that various denominations are there. Various denominations. These are the denominations. 50 paise is one denomination of the currency. 1 rupee, 2 rupees, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 500, 2000. These are the various denominations of Indian currency. Okay. Right. Now, these are the two primary functions. There are a couple of functions which are derived from this, which are derived from these primary functions. We call them as the derived functions. What are the derived functions? I'm writing it as 3 and 4 because there are 4 functions of money. We are just subclassifying it as primary and derived functions. The third function of money is that the moment it acts as a medium of exchange, the moment that it has some value, you can store it for the future. For example, if you are someone who's a farmer engaged in dairy farmer, okay, assume that you are a dairy farmer. You cannot store your milk or dairy related products for a long time. There is not a lot of shelf life, which means that you cannot have a long-term value storage in terms of milk. Whereas if you have money, you can exchange milk for money and you can store the money for as long as you want. So it acts as a store of value. Store of value. So essentially, what is store of value? Store of value means what? You can use money as a medium of exchange, not today, but in future. In future, you can use, in order to use money as a medium of exchange, you're storing it. Now, money is not the only thing which has a store of value. You can store your money in terms of, you store your wealth in terms of land, in terms of gold, in terms of many other objects. Okay? But money also has this function. People use money to store their value for a longer period of time. Today, almost all the money that we have goes into the banking system. That is again a store. But in a previous era, people used to store the money itself at home. Whatever money that they required, they'll keep that everything that required at home, and then remaining only whatever they wouldn't require for a long period, that only they would put it in the bank. Okay? So it acts as a store of value, which is safe. And finally, this is a concept which many of you may not quite understand when I write it, but you're all familiar with it. It acts as a standard of deferred payment. To defer something means what? To delay something. So deferred means delayed. It acts as a standard of delayed payment. It acts as a standard of delayed payment. Sorry, I accidentally clicked on stop video. It acts as a standard of delayed payment, which means what? See, uh, when we talk about business, most of the business that happens in any place, in any country, in any place, happens through loans. Why? Because not everyone who does business has the money to do business. Okay? Money may not be available. They mostly have ideas. So what do? They go and present their idea to a bank, say, this is what my plan is. Will you give me a loan? Or they may go and go to someone called as an investor and they may say, I have an idea. Are you interested in investing in my idea? So there could be different options, but loan is the most common option. Whenever you are in need of, you have an idea to do something, you have an idea to study, you have an idea to buy a house, you have an idea to do a particular business, you don't have the money. Not everyone has ready-made money. Very few people have money in their hands, ready money in their hands. So most of the world does their activities through loans, which is clearly shown by the number of things that we tend to buy on EMI. a lot of families buy a lot of things on EMI because they don't have the money now, but they have a steady stream of income coming in, right? In the near future, they'll get money using which they'll be able to repay. So that is what we call as the standard of deferred payment, which means what? Using money, you can delay a repayment and you can make it in different parts. So you can borrow today, you can repay in many parts. The payment happens over a period of time. This you cannot think of doing with respect to other ways in which you store money. For example, you have your commodity that you produce. You cannot repay in terms of small. I'll give you 100 grams of rice today, 100 grams of rice tomorrow, 100 grams of rice later. That may not be possible. With respect to other commodities that you produce also, there is this difficulty. Imagine that you have stored your value in the form of a land. Then you cannot break down a land and saying today I'll give you 1/3 of my land or half of my land. Then I'll give you half of my land later. It's very difficult. That transaction becomes very, very difficult. But with money, you can easily divide it into smaller parts and you can give it over a period of time as well. Okay? For which there will be an interest obligation and all those. Now, let me just clarify this. Why do we call this as derived functions? Take a look at this. The first function there is medium of exchange. Because it can act as a medium of exchange, from one, we are deriving the store of value. Because in future also it has value. You can use it in future for transactions. You can store it for future. There is no shelf life or expiry or anything like that. Similarly, because you can break it down into smaller units, you are using it as a standard of deferred payment. So 3 is derived from 1, 4 is derived from 2, which is why we call it as derived functions of money. Whereas the first two are the primary functions of money. When we say derived or secondary functions, these functions cannot exist on its own. These functions, 3 will automatically exist if you have 1, and 4 will exist if you have 2. That is what we call as derived functions of money. Okay. So what are some examples of things which can act as money other than the currency system that we have currently? You have a possibility where gold can act as money. Gold has already acted as money. We have historical evidence of gold acting as money because gold can be used for transactions. When sufficient gold was available, it was used. Today, it is not used because sufficient quantities of gold is not available for it to be used. Gold is far too valuable. Even the smallest unit of gold that you can imagine is way too valuable for it to be used as part of casual transactions. Okay. So that is why gold is not used anymore. Similarly, historically, we have evidence of silver being used as currency, which again has the same problem, right? You can even consider things like oil can act as money because oil has all these properties. The only problem is storing oil requires much larger space than storing just currency. So that could be the only issue. Other than that, oil may act as currency. Diamond may act as currency, but the problem with diamond is that it is not easy to break down diamonds into smaller units. Like gold can easily be broken down into smaller units by a small quick industrial process. With diamond, hardest item out there, so it is difficult to classify it into or divide it into smaller units. Plus, diamond is also far too valuable. The smallest unit of diamond is far too valuable, right? So that is these are some examples. Now you can think of other examples also. If you can think of anything, you can tell me. Paper, representative paper currency. So how does paper get its value? It is just paper. Does every paper act as money? No. So paper gets value because someone says that it has value. So that can act as currency. If it gets to a stage where water becomes a scarcity, if it gets to a stage where water becomes a scarcity, then water itself could act as currency. If you take a look at some of the post-apocalyptic movies in Hollywood, there are a lot of movies called as, Earth faces some sort of destruction, and after that, humankind is trying to survive. Most of the places you will find that water is a scarce resource. Then water itself becomes a thing about which people are waging wars. Okay? So water can act as, it becomes very, very highly valuable and it acts as a currency. It could act as a currency. Any of this has a potential to act as currency. But currently, something either gold or something based on gold would act as currency. That is how the currency system works. In addition to this, we have cryptocurrency. We have a concept called as cryptocurrency. We have a concept called as digital currency. Okay, so what is digital currency? Is it something that is legal in India? Is digital currency legal in India? I want you to answer. Is digital currency legal in India? Raj, I will explain that point maybe a little later when there is a pause. Okay, I've got a couple of answers. One person saying no, one person saying yes. I got it. I got it, Raj. Okay, there is another person saying no, not legal. Okay, no is another answer. Actually, digital currency is very much legal in India. Not just legal, it is promoted by the government of India. What do I mean? When the RBI says, when the government says, use digital modes of payment, move towards a less cash society. They are saying that use your debit cards for transactions, use UPI for transactions. How are the transactions happening? Transactions are happening over the internet. The moment it happens over the internet, it becomes a digital currency. So digital currency is very much legal in India. Okay. Digital currency is very much legal in India, and the government is trying to promote more and more of digital currency. But digital currency, which is based on the rupee system, is what is legal in India. Digital currency based on rupee system is valid in India. Digital currency based on other forms of currency, encrypted currency or cryptocurrency. Yes, I understood. I intentionally asked that question. I know that everyone who said no, it is not legal, or someone said it is neither legal nor illegal, government is yet to frame a policy. All of you are correct, but your answer was with respect to cryptocurrency. In India, currency other than rupee is not legal. Is not legal for transactions. You cannot use it for day-to-day transactions. It is not legal. But earlier, they had made it illegal to hold cryptocurrency. When the Bitcoin came into existence and the Reserve Bank of India framed a policy, they made it illegal to hold Bitcoin. Later, through a Supreme Court ruling, they have said it is not illegal to hold Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is not an accepted currency in India. If you want to invest in Bitcoin, you can very much go and do that. It is your risk, though. If you do that and you lose money, it is your risk. You're free to do that, but it is your risk. There was a time when we did not have a clear policy. Now our policy is you do whatever you want. We are not making it illegal because it is something there. You want to invest in gold, I'm not saying no. Similarly, you want to invest in Bitcoin, I'm not going to say no. But if you suffer a loss, don't come to the RBI or the government saying that you have suffered a loss. It is an individual risk that you are taking. But Bitcoin is not accepted as a currency in India. Okay. So whatever answer that you gave is about cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is just one example of cryptocurrency. There are other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. I am not very sure about the spelling. I think it is Ethereum. This could be the spelling. There is something called as Libra. You would have heard of in the context of Facebook. Okay. In fact, there is a country which is okay. Ethereum. RIUM. Thank you for that, Raj. RIUM. There is another country, a country called Venezuela, which has its own cryptocurrency called as Petro. China recently released their yuan version of cryptocurrency in yuan form. They had done that. India, the RBI itself is considering the possibility of bringing rupee in the form of cryptocurrency. Instead of printing notes, create a cryptocurrency of our own, but based on the rupee system. That is something the RBI is considering. Okay. Yes, Magesh. It does have a role to play. Okay, so this is the context about cryptocurrency and the difference between digital currency and cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a type of digital currency. Cryptocurrency is a type of digital currency. So digital currency is a broad set of transactions or broad area which covers a lot of things, among which our rupee itself is acting as digital currency. So that part is legal. The rest of it is not legal. Hope it has cleared up the question for you. Now, what is cryptocurrency? What is encryption? How is the encryption happening? What is the technology behind encryption? All that is more science and technology. It will be dealt with in the science and tech class. Okay. Concepts like blockchain technology and all those will be dealt with later. The ledger system, how it works, and all those will be dealt with in the science and tech class. Now, we have looked at examples of currency. We'll move on. Before I move on further, there's one person who asked me if I could repeat this fourth point. Okay, I will. So the fourth point here is about standard of deferred payment. So standard of deferred payment means it acts as a reference, a way in which you can make delayed payment. Using rupee, there is a way in which you can make delayed payment. For example, we have the system of equated monthly installments, or in general, the loan system itself, where you take a loan and you repay it over a period of time based on a concept where you have the interest rate and all those. So rupee or any currency or any valid currency in a country can act as a standard of deferred payment. Okay. The entity which governs the currency system, RBI itself, has a way in which it encourages this. Because RBI, you would have come across in the newspaper terms like repo rate and all those. Repo rate and all those. I'll explain what is repo rate when we get to inflation. But these rates that are there, those are essentially interest rates. So this is the standard, what I'm referring to as standard. It is in terms of rupees, in terms of money that we are discussing this. Okay. So that was the fourth point once again. Moving on now. Types of money, the third heading that we have. Types of currency or types of money. Okay, we have a question with respect to cryptocurrency. How can cryptocurrency be exchanged in day-to-day life? See, how it works in India is a little difficult for all of us to understand because we have not seen it in action. But there was a time period prior to June, July 2019 when the government had made no law about cryptocurrency as a currency itself. Okay, so at that time, there were some places in cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, and all those places where the stores used to accept payments in bitcoins also. So they used to advertise bitcoins are accepted as currency. So how do you do? What do you do? In your account, there will be some bitcoin, some quantity of bitcoin, and it acts like just like a bank account. You have certain value of bitcoins, and they say this particular commodity is equal to these many bitcoins. So you buy that, you transfer the bitcoin to the other person. It is just like a rupee system. That is how it would work in day-to-day system. All right. This is an answer to the question that is asked by Kishore, who's asking, how can cryptocurrency be used in day-to-day life? Kishore, one Bitcoin is equal to 1.4 million what? 1.4 million what? What is the unit? 1.4 million rupees. Let me just verify whether that is correct or not. I am not able to find it right now. But I will give you an answer to that. So in terms of, yeah, so we do have, yes, one Bitcoin is equal to 14 lakh. It is equal to 14 lakh 3,279. Okay, that's what one Bitcoin is equal to, which means that clearly it will not be sold as one Bitcoin, but maybe smaller units of Bitcoin. You may not be getting it as one Bitcoin, but much smaller units of Bitcoin. And you have to remember something. This Bitcoin and equal equation with respect to the rupee is not a stable value. If no one wants Bitcoin, let's say we have a situation where no Indian wants Bitcoin, then one Bitcoin can suddenly drop down to 1,000 rupees. Because there is no central entity regulating the Bitcoin, the value can skyrocket one day and then fall the next day. There is no one controlling it. So you cannot say that today the value is 14 lakh rupees per Bitcoin. 10 days later, it could be 10 lakhs. Maybe even 10 days later, it could fall down to 10,000 rupees. And maybe another 5 days later, it could go to 2 lakh rupees again. There is no one changing it. If the demand of the Bitcoin and supply of Bitcoins keeps varying, okay, that is how the value of Bitcoin is determined. And the valuation that you see here is because in India now it is very few people who are dealing in it, so the valuation goes higher. Once it becomes more commonplace, the value may come down. In fact, if you look at Bitcoins, when there was no ban on using Bitcoin as a currency, the value may not have been so high. And even if it is so, you can easily say, I don't have an entire Bitcoin, I have 1/100th of a Bitcoin or 1,000th of a Bitcoin. That's also a possibility, if I'm not wrong, in terms of how transactions work. Anyway, currently it is not used as part of day-to-day transactions. So you should not look at it as a comparison to Indian rupee. You have to look at countries where Bitcoin is still legal, is legal currently, and you have to look at what is one Bitcoin equal to in terms of their currency. That will give you a better idea about how Bitcoin can act in day-to-day life. In India, I told you clearly, it cannot be used in day-to-day transactions because the government has not endorsed it. The government has said it cannot be used for monetary transactions. Your medium of exchange, it cannot be used as that. So I think that explains this overvaluation of a Bitcoin. So we'll have to look at a history of the value of Bitcoin with respect to rupees. Then only we can make a proper comment about that. So Kishore, maybe sometime when we take a couple of minutes break in between, I'll take a look at the history of the value of Bitcoins and I'll give you a greater clarity on this. Right? Okay, so moving on then. Okay, sure. So types of money. So when we talk about types of money, so we are talking about after the money system comes into existence. So initially we had the barter system. From barter system, we move to a money system. Where what is money doing? Money, it is acting as an intermediary. Where money is acting as an intermediary. Okay, as an intermediate thing. So when we say types of money, we are talking about money as an intermediary. So what are the different types of money that is there? To begin with, we had a system where a commodity itself was acting as money. When I say commodity as money, please don't assume it to be the barter system. I'm not referring to the barter system. When I say commodity itself as money, we are saying that gold was being used as money. Gold, which is valuable for the people, will act as money. Or silver, which is valuable for people, will act as money. And so on. Whatever else you want to add, you can add over here. So that is example of commodity money. But after a point of time, you remember in yesterday's story, I told you what happens. You don't have sufficient quantities of that commodity. You don't have sufficient quantities of that commodity, which means that you will have to represent that money by something else, something which is more commonly available. So that is where you come to a concept of representative. So representative money. But what happened over a period of time, over various representations, initially gold was probably represented as copper and all those was done. Eventually, we have reached a situation where paper has started representing other things. Okay. Within this representative paper money, we have two classifications. One is called as convertible representative paper money, and the second is inconvertible representative paper money. Convertible representative paper money and inconvertible representative paper money. There are two classifications like this. Now, when we talk about convertible representative paper money, the value for that comes from two things. Value for that comes from two things. One is that the people believe in the government that is in existence. The government says, please use paper. Let that one paper be equal to, let's say, 1 gram of gold or something like that. that people believe in that government. When government says, okay, we will ensure that we will give you that value, people believe that. The second is where we have a commodity backing it at all given times, which means what? You have a paper which says this paper is equal to 1 gram of gold. Okay. There is a promise inside it which says that, let's say it's the governor of the central bank of that country, which says, I promise to exchange 1 gram of gold with anyone who's holding this paper currency. What does that mean? Yesterday, I gave an example, right? You go to the RBI governor and say, give a 500 rupee note and say, give me 500 rupees. RBI governor will only give you another 500 rupees. But in this convertible system, what happens is you go to the central bank, whoever is the governor or the head of that, you give this paper to them. They'll give you in exchange actual 1 gram of gold. So you know that there is always a commodity backing it. Okay, you know that there is always a commodity backing it, and you know that you trust the government to give you the value. This is where representative paper money is in convertible form. Here, what is the currency? The currency is still gold. The currency is still the commodity money. You do not have a system like rupee or dollar or any of those. What is the currency system in the country? Gold is the currency system in the country. Then why are you not using gold? Because if we use gold, one, we don't have sufficient quantity. We may not have sufficient quantities of gold, or more than that, if we keep on using gold, gold will lose its value. You have gold chipping off, gold constant use loses its value, loses its shine and color and all those things. It becomes a little dirty and all those, it happens, and gradually it starts shaving off and corrosion and all those happens because it's a metal after all. So in order to not lose value of gold, government may say, whatever gold is there, let me take it in. And you guys transact in paper. But whenever you require gold, you can come to me. I'll give you that gold in return. There is a promise of the government. So that is how convertible representative paper money existed. This is a system which was in prevalence in USA. Even before dollar came into existence, this was in prevalence. Gold was the currency, but it was convertible. Gold represented in the form of paper, which is used for transactions. So all the items in the economy were priced in terms of gold. Some commodity, this pen is equal to 1 gram of gold. A pencil may be equal to half a gram of gold, or something else may be equal to 5 grams of gold. That is how the price of commodity. And your payment was also in terms of gold. You work for someone, your salary was in terms of gold. Initially, they were granting gold, giving gold, but instead of gold, they started representing paper saying this paper is equal to 1 gram of gold. So the salary will still be, let's say, 50 grams of gold is the salary. They'll give you 50 grams of gold, but in paper. Maybe they'll give you 50 sheets of 1 gram gold, which you can use for various transactions. But when it actually got to a situation where sufficient gold is not available, so even in this system, you cannot say gold is not available and you will just start printing paper. That is not, because at any point of time, the people may come and ask for the gold back. So you should have how much ever is paper is in circulation, that much amount of gold you should have in your reserve. But when it actually gets to a stage where sufficient gold is not available and you cannot use that gold as a currency anymore, you come up with new currency systems. You come up with new currency systems like dollar or rupee or any other currency system that exists in the country, in the world, yen, mark, which is German currency. All those, these are various currency systems that are there. Okay, but in these currency systems, there is no commodity backing it. There is only here. There are two promises given to the people, two reasons why people believe in it. But when it comes to inconvertible representative paper money, there is only one factor which determines whether people use it or not, which is government's order. Trust in the government. Government passes an order or a law which says that rupee is the new currency system in India. If people believe in the government, people will follow the rupee system. It's as simple as that. You cannot take the rupee and say this rupee based on the gold that we have is what we are going to print the rupee. Okay, if we have 100 grams of gold, we'll print 100 grams worth of rupee. That is not how it is done. Initially, it was done that way because people had to develop trust in this currency system. So what they did, if India had, let's say, 500 kilograms of gold, we'll ask how much value can 500 kilograms of gold be given. So we give a value and that much amount of paper currency will print. Okay. Later, when governments start believing that people trust in the currency system, people trust in the rupee system, they think there is no need to have gold as backup anymore. We'll remove that. We'll just simply print currency. So currently we are in a system where we blindly trust in the government. So there might be some people here at some point of time in your life, you may have, or you would have seen people, other people in as your friends or someone who's saying, I don't believe in this government. I don't think this government will do anything good for us. If you truly do not believe in government, you can never accept a rupee note. You can never accept a currency note because you're putting your entire trust in the government when you accept rupees. Because if the government is not there, the rupee is not valid. If the Indian government is not there, the rupee is not valid. You take your rupee outside India, does it have any value? No, it is just a piece of paper. So if you're someone who doesn't believe in the government, you should not be using the currency system at all in the first place. You cannot use the currency system and go and get value and then say, I don't believe in this government. It is your belief in the government which is reflected in the fact that you're using the currency note. Okay, so it is purely based on the belief in the government that the money system in the country is working. So which brings us to the third type of money, which we'll call as fiat money. Here, what is meant by fiat? Fiat means a government's order. Fiat means a government's order. Okay? Fiat means a government's order. That is the meaning of the English word fiat. Some authority's order. In this case, government's order. Okay? So any money which becomes valid, which comes into existence through a government order, we call it as fiat money. So what is the example for fiat money? Once again, I'll say rupee is an example of fiat money. So rupee is an inconvertible representative paper money, but where does it get its value from? From a government order. The moment it is a government order which gives validity to a currency, it is also called as fiat money. All right. So convertible representative paper money gets its validity from the commodity which is backing it. Inconvertible representative paper money gets its validity from the fiat of the government. Okay. So inconvertible, all fiat money in a way is inconvertible representative paper money because it exists purely on a government order, be it rupee, be it dollar, all. In other words, all fiat money is inconvertible representative paper money. Okay. So these are just two different terms to convey two different things. Inconvertible talks about the nature of that currency. Can you exchange this for something else? That is what is inconvertible. Okay. Fiat money says, where is that currency getting its value from? It is getting its value from the fiat of the government. That is all the differences. Okay. Now coming to the fourth one. Fourth one is a term called as legal tender. Okay. Legal tender. So what is fiat money? Rupee is a fiat money. Dollar is a fiat money. Let's take the example of rupee alone because we are very familiar with it. Now within rupee, what is a valid rupee? So we say rupee one is valid. But if you have to make a transaction of, let's say, rupees 11, do you have a 11 rupee note? Do we have a 11 rupee note? We don't have a 11 rupee note. We don't have a 12 rupee note. We don't have a 7 rupee note. What do we have? We have the various denominations which we saw earlier, remember? So what is legal tender? Legal tender is valid currency notes. Example, valid currency notes. Example, rupees 1, rupee 1. The coin or the note is a legal tender. The coin, 1 rupee coin or 1 rupee note is a legal tender. If the 2 rupee coin is a legal tender. Okay. If there is a note, that is also legal tender. 5 rupee coin is a legal tender. 5 rupee note is a legal tender. 10 rupee coin is a legal tender. 10 rupee note is a legal tender. 20 rupee note is a legal tender. If you find a 20 rupee coin somewhere, it is not legal tender because the government has not given validity to a 20 rupee coin. It doesn't exist as legal tender. Similarly, a 50 rupee note is a legal tender. Okay, 100 rupee note is a legal tender. 200 rupee note is a legal tender. 500 rupee note is a legal tender. 2000 rupee note is a legal tender. These are the only legal tenders in India. If you find a currency note which says rupees 25, one currency note, it is obviously fake. It's not a legal tender. If you find a, let's say, 1000 rupee note in circulation in India, it is not legal tender because Indian government has not given legality to such a currency note. Okay. Now, Archana has asked a question. Archana, I'll take it up in a moment after I finish this discussion. So now, how do we define legal tender? That definition is very important. Legal tender is any form of currency. Okay, it's a form of currency where there is an obligation on people to accept it for transactions. So you call it as an acceptable, legally acceptable form of we call it, by technical definition, it is repaying debt, a legally accepted form of repaying debt. Or you can call it as a legally binding mode of or form of accepting credit. So these are very technical phrases. I'll simplify it for you. So what is meant by legally accepted form of repaying debt? Let us say you owe someone some money. Okay, and what are the various ways in which you might be owing money to someone? When you borrow money, you owe someone some money. You have to give that person back some money. But even otherwise, you go to a store, you buy a commodity. Let's say you buy 1 kilogram of onion. Now, after you have bought it, now it is in your ownership, which means that you are now possessing someone else's commodity. It is not your commodity till you pay the money. So you are in debt. Technically, you are in debt. So when you are making transactions to buy something, you are actually repaying a debt. It's a very momentary debt. For a very small period of time, you buy certain things, it's in your possession, but it is someone else's good which is in your possession, which means that you are borrowing that. It doesn't become yours till you pay money for that. So it's a legally acceptable form of repaying debt. Means what? If I am the one who needs to make payments, I know that with these currency notes and coins, I can make payments. It is legally acceptable. Okay. Now, what does the second one mean? Let's say I am paying someone some money. That person cannot say no to it. That is a legally binding form of accepting credit. Means what? If you are someone who has given a loan to someone, okay. So a better way of writing it is a legally binding way or legally binding form of payment which cannot be denied by a creditor. Form of payment which cannot be rejected by a creditor. Now, who's a creditor here? Either one who has lent money to you or one who has lent commodities to you, goods and services. So you go to a store, you buy things, the storekeeper becomes the creditor because they have given you credit in the form of commodity. Now you have to make a payment for that. When you make payment, they cannot reject it for any reason. They cannot reject it. Legally, they cannot reject if you make payment in these currencies. Okay. So if you owe someone rupees 100, you buy a commodity worth 100 rupees, you give them the Indian rupee of 100, they're saying, okay, no, I cannot accept it. Give me something else. Give me gold. They do not have the right to ask that. They have to accept rupee because that is the legally accepted currency in India. That is what is meant by legal tender. Currency notes, tender here means currency notes. You have heard this, probably seen this word in various places. Please tender exact change. Tender means what? Something to give, to make payments using. That is what tender means. So legal tender means a legally accepted form of making payments. Okay? So that is what legal tender here means. Now, within legal tender, now yesterday also I gave this example, right? I told you 10 rupee coins are not accepted by some people. It means that the legal tender, where everyone has to accept it, some people are not accepting it, which is why I told you, if you don't make the payment and run away, in court it will rule in your favor. Because it is legal tender, it was a fault of the shopkeeper to not accept your payment. So legally they are bound to accept it. If they don't accept it, then you don't have the liability anymore. You borrowed 1 lakh rupees from someone, you repay that 1 lakh in all legal tender, they are bound to accept it. They cannot say, no, I cannot accept it. You repay in terms of gold. You repay in terms of rice or something else. They cannot say. They are bound to accept it. But within this legal tender, there are some limitations. There are two types which we call as limited legal tender and unlimited legal tender. Limited and unlimited legal tender, which means what? Here, there is a limit up to which you can make repayments. Here, there is no such limit. For example, in India, the rupee coins that you have, small denomination coins and small denomination notes and all those, using those, you can make a maximum payment only up to rupees 1,000. Using a 1 rupee coin, you can repay only up to 1,000 rupees, which means that if you have to make a payment of 1,000 rupees and you give everything as 1 rupee coins, you give 1,000 1 rupee coins, they have to accept it. Even if it is inconvenient for them, they have to accept it. But if you are making any payment above 1,000 rupees in 1 rupee coins, they can say no to it. They say, give me something higher. Give me 10 rupee coins. Give me 10 rupee notes, 10 rupee coins, 20 rupee notes, 50 rupee notes. Okay? Even within the legal tender, there's a classification for the sake of convenience. If you give a lot of money in small denominations, it will become very inconvenient. So the RBI changes from time to time what is limited and what is unlimited. Previously, it was 1 rupee. I don't think that RBI has made a change yet. But currently, if you go somewhere and you make the payment entirely in 1 rupee, there is a good chance that they will not accept it on the basis of convenience. Okay, so if you borrow, let's say 1 lakh rupees from someone, you cannot, in India, you cannot legally make the entire payment in 1 rupee coins. It has to be a higher denomination than that legally. Okay. All right. So that is about legal tender, limited and unlimited. In unlimited, there is no such, you can make any quantity of any amount of payment in that. Okay. But within unlimited legal tender, the government may bring in other regulations also within unlimited legal tender. See, any amount of money you can pay in terms of certain legal tender, but India may bring in a regulation saying that any payment above 2 lakh rupees, it has to be in digital payment. They may say something like that. It has to be in digital payment. For example, it could be in the form of, let's say, a bank transfer, or it could be in the form of debit or credit card, or it could be in the form of DD, or it could be in the form of check. Why do they say so? Why does the government say so? Because they want to track these transactions. They want to find out whether it is black money or proper legal transactions. That is the reason. It does not limit the extent of the legal tender, but for some other reason, they are bringing in such restrictions that any transaction above 2 lakhs or 1 lakh or whatever the regulation that the Reserve Bank of India brings in or the government brings in. So any transactions above that value have to go through a bank. So all these are forms of payment which goes through bank. So that, and you have already seen that, you probably are already aware that every bank account has to be linked with the PAN number. PAN number is something which is the ID number of the income tax department. Okay. So that is how limited and unlimited legal tender works. So now let me just clarify a few things for you. Example of legal tender itself is the various rupee denominations. Example of fiat money is also rupee. Example of inconvertible representative paper money is also rupee. Then why do we have these three classifications? This was a doubt which Archana also asked. So I already answered this question actually, but I'll repeat the answer. See, when we call something as inconvertible representative paper money, what are we trying to define? We are saying what is the nature of that currency. When we call it as representative paper money, we are saying that this money is representing something. Okay, it is representing something. Now, it is representing something. What is it representing? We are not answering in convertible money, inconvertible money. In convertible, inconvertible, we are just talking about the nature. This representative paper money, can we convert it to something? Can we convert it to a commodity or can we not convert it? It is based on that classification that we have two terms, convertible representative paper money and inconvertible representative paper money. Based on what is giving value to that currency, we have another classification, commodity money, fiat money. Commodity money is where there is a commodity backing that currency. Fiat money is where there is no commodity, but purely a government's authority or a trust in the government, which is resulting in that. That is why the same rupee, we are calling it as inconvertible representative paper money. We are calling it as fiat money also. That is the reason why we have two different terms, because these two different terms mean two different aspects of that currency. Okay. So just because there is a government order which says rupee is valid, it doesn't automatically make it inconvertible. So that is why you say, okay, it is a fiat money which is inconvertible in nature. Okay. Now, when gold was acting as currency, it was also based on a government order. I told you, right? Because here also there is a government order. Here also there is a government order. Here also there is a government order. But it is a government order. It is based on some fiat, but it is also backed by a commodity. Okay, it is also backed by a commodity. So that is why we have a distinction of commodity money and fiat money, and convertible and inconvertible. Now, within fiat money, just because, see, you have a concept, I told you rupee is valid currency, right? I told you rupee is valid currency. Rupees 15 is fiat money. Rupee itself is fiat money. Rupees 15 is part of fiat money, but rupees 15 as a legal tender is not valid because the government has not had a 15 rupee note. To arrive at the fiat money of rupees 15, you have to use legal tenders of rupees 10 and rupees 5, or rupees 10, rupees 2, and rupees 2, two notes of rupees 2 and one note of rupee 1. Either of these ways, you will have to arrive at that. So that is the distinction between what is fiat money and what is legal tender. I hope this is clear. Archana says she is clear. If others had a doubt, I hope this clarifies that for you. Okay. So these are all the different types of money from the perspective of government and the existence of money. Now let me ask you a question: is a check, DD, demand draft? DD stands for demand draft. Are these, or your debit card, are these legal tender? I've already given you the answer to this. Are these legal tender? Raj gives me an emphatic answer. Helen has also given me an answer. Opposing answers. Okay, most of the people are giving me the wrong answer. Okay. So I think that's all the answers. The answer is it is not legal tender. It is not legal tender. Now, what did I say is legal tender? Legal tender is legally accepted form of payment, legally binding method of payment. Okay. Who gives that legality? It is based on government passing an order that it becomes legal money. Right? Government passes an order saying this is valid money. So it is the government which is bringing that money into existence. It is the government which is bringing that currency into existence. Where did I tell you this previously? I knew that you would get distracted here because I wrote this here. I knew you would get distracted here. It was intentional. I told you right here when I was talking about different legal tenders, I told you these are the only legal tenders in India. I had made that point. I had written all these and these different currencies that are there. And I had told you these are the only legal tenders in India in the form of coin or in the form of notes. 1, 2, 5, 10 exist in the form of the first line exists in the form of coins. Plus you also have the 50 paise. These exist as coins. 1 rupee exists as a note. I am not very sure about 2 rupees. 5 rupees exists as a note. 10 rupees exists as a note. The others also exist as a currency note. These are the only legal tenders in India. Why? Because these are the only ones which are issued by the government. Okay. Now, who issues check, DD, and debit card? It is issued by a bank. It could be issued by a private bank, it could be issued by a public sector bank, whatever be the case. Who is the authority which gives validity to it? It is a bank which gives authority to it. If you have been issued a particular demand draft or a check, okay, in your account, only there it is valid. You cannot go to any random bank, right? You cannot go to any random bank, take any check which is issued and withdraw money. No, it has to be issued in your name. It has to have the validity of that particular bank. Only then is it valid. So within the banking system, it is valid, but outside of the banking system, you go to a store, can you give a DD and say, okay, you go to buy 1 kg of rice in the market, and there can you give me a DD of 30 rupees? You go and ask, will you accept DD? What will they say? Okay. So DD and all those are, again, you go buy a pen, 5 rupee pen. I'll say, I'll give you a check for 5 rupees. Not valid, right? It is not valid. So it is not valid, which is why some stores have the right to reject debit cards. You go and say, can I make a card payment? They say, I don't have card machine. I will not accept it. It is still rupee. The payment is happening in rupee, but these modes of payment are not accepted there. But wherever the mode of payment is or the value of payment is above 2 lakhs, the government has brought in an order that you have to use these. But that doesn't make it legal tender, because these are ultimately still issued by bank. And within the banks, there is only currency which is getting transacted. Within the banks, there is still only currency notes which are getting transacted. These are for the purpose of tracing. So these are what we call as not legal tender, not fiat money. These are what we call as bank money. Money which gets its power from a bank's order. Bank money. Money which gets its validity from a bank's order. Bank passes an order saying that my currency is valid. The moment you have an account, you trust in that bank's order. You believe that the bank will be stable. Okay. Number 6. Now, this ends the different types of money. Now we'll go into concepts related to money, based, again, classification types of money, but these are concepts. Conceptually, how does money work? So as examples, you can write these. Conceptually, how does money work? There is a concept token money. Token money. Now, what is meant by token money? See, a currency note says this currency note, and this currency note I'm saying is sorry, not a dollar. This currency note is a gold system, where gold is the currency. Remember the commodity money that we are speaking about? Gold is the currency, and this currency note says 1 gram of gold. Okay. What is the face value of this currency? Face value is what is the value written on the currency. The face value of gold is of this currency is 1 gram of gold. What is its inherent value? In its inherent value, if it is a paper, it doesn't have that value. Whereas if it is a gold coin, which is 1 gram, its inherent value itself is equal to 1 gram of gold. Its face value is also equal to 1 gram of gold. But the moment you start representing it with paper, its face value may be 1 gram of gold, but its inherent value will be the value of that paper, which will be an insignificant value. Okay, so what we call as token money is when the face value is greater than the intrinsic value. The face value of that money is greater than intrinsic value. Okay, a currency system where the face value is greater than the intrinsic value is called as token money. Take for example, in India we have, let's say, the 100 rupee note. Okay, on paper it says 100 rupees, but if there is no government order, this 100 rupee doesn't have a value of 100 rupees. This 100 rupee note doesn't have a value of 100 rupees. It has a much, like maybe 1 rupee, whatever is the value of paper. You remember a concept called as demonetization, which happened? After demonetization, the old 500 rupee notes and the old 1000 rupee notes, what is the value that they had? They didn't have any value at all. They were just paper, because the government removed the legal tender status of these two currencies. You can go back and read the news about demonetization. You would find a news which says, starting this particular date, rupees 500 and rupees 1000 cease to be legal tenders, which means that the 500 and 1000 rupee does not have a value of its own. Now imagine a different system where gold is being used. Okay, gold is used as currency. In gold coins, 1 gram gold is there, 5 gram gold coin is there, 10 gram gold coin is there. Okay, here the government says, okay, we are demonetizing gold coins, and 10 gram gold coins are not valid anymore. People will say, who cares? I still have gold. Gold has its own value. I'll use gold as, I'll melt it and use it for other purposes. Who wants you to give value to this? So which is why commodity money is not backed by a fiat. Commodity money gets its value purely from the value of the commodity, because people are willing to give value to that commodity. Okay, so the opposite of this, all the currency system that exists today is an example of token money, and the old commodity money is an example of full bodied money. Let me rewrite it. Sorry, full bodied money. What is full bodied money? Your face value is equal to intrinsic value, which means that the entire value of the money is inside its body. The entire value of that money, 10 gram is the value of the money, but the 10 gram itself is there inside the coin itself. That coin is, even if, see, you take a 10 gram coin, how do you find it? You take a 10 gram coin, wherever, let's say, 10 gram coin is valid in India. Gold is the currency in India, 10 gram gold coin is there. Government says, okay, 10 gram gold coin is not going to be accepted. You can take this 10 gram outside India. There also you will get the value of 10 grams for gold. Whatever you can get for 10 grams of gold, you will get there, which means it is not based on a government that it exists. It has a value of its own. Okay. You take coins. Let's say, let's take a 10 rupee coin. 10 rupee coin in India has a face value of 10, but its intrinsic value, okay, 10 rupee coin has a face value of 10. Its intrinsic value may be rupees 2. You might, if you sell it in a store, they melt it and they use it as metal. Maybe you will get 2 rupees out of it, whatever is the value of that metal. That is what is called as the intrinsic value. Whereas in full bodied money, both will be equal. If 10 gram gold coin will have an intrinsic value of 10 gram. Face value is what is written on top of the coin or the currency. Intrinsic value is what is inherent to it. What is the value of that commodity which is used in that making that currency. Okay, so these are two opposite concepts: token money and full bodied money. Examples for token money is any fiat money that you have, or any representative money itself. Any representative money is token money. Full bodied money, the only example is commodity money, where the commodity itself is acting as money and the commodity has a value of its own. There is no requirement for any fiat or any sort of that. Okay. Now moving to the eighth one. there is a distinction between hard currency. Hard currency means currency which is stable, and soft currency. Soft currency means currency which is unstable. Example for hard currency is dollar, euro, etc. Example for soft currency is currency which is unstable or which fluctuates a lot, like rupee and any other example that you can think of, peso. All those developing nation currencies would be soft currency. Developed nations currencies would be more or less hard currency. Hard means difficult to change in value. It remains stable. Soft means it can easily change. Now, don't make the modern definition of hard and soft, hard copy, soft copy, paper money was a digital money. That is a mistake that could happen where you might think soft currency is digital currency. That is not the case. Hard and soft in economics refers to stable and unstable currency. So hard currency means stable currency, soft currency means unstable currency, fluctuating currency, currency which loses its value frequently, that is soft currency. We see, right, frequently in news, $1 is equal to 60 rupees one day. Then $1 becomes equal to rupees 70, rupees 75, and so on. This is the decrease in the value of the Indian currency. That is why we call it as soft currency. Okay. And finally, the last concept that I want to teach under these types of money is a concept called as hot money. We hold money in our hand, right? What will we do if the money is really, really hot? When I say hot, I mean literally hot. What happens if we are holding really hot money in our hands? We will not hold it in our hands for a long time. We'll pass it on to someone else. Imagine some hot commodity in our hand. We'll quickly pass it. And probably you have also heard of this concept. I need hot cash. Why do people say I need hot cash? Because it is not going to stay in the hands of people for long. Hot money is money which doesn't stay in one place for too long. Money which frequently moves from one hand to another. That is what is hot money, which doesn't stay in one place for too long. Now, why are we learning about this concept? It is more relevant in the context of international investments. International investments. Now, imagine an international investment comes into India. We call it as foreign investment. Okay? Foreign investment. Foreign investment comes into India. Let's say $1,000 comes into India. Oh, we think, okay, we have $1,000 in India, and a proportionate amount of rupee will create, and we'll have a certain level of money in the economy. Why did they bring their money into India? They thought, okay, maybe we have a good scope for investing and making a profit out of it. Sometime later, they suddenly realized that there is not a lot of scope in India. They are not going to make a profit out of it. They quickly take the money outside India and they go to some other country. Maybe they'll go to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. Okay, there they'll invest for some time, and then they realize that okay, there is a better investment opportunity in Brazil. Then they'll go to Brazil. From there, they may go to maybe Middle Eastern nations, West Asian countries. So this investment money, which keeps on going from a place to place, that is what we call as hot money. Now, why are we learning about it? Because excess of hot money creates instability in a country. Excess of hot money creates instability in a country. Now, how does it happen? We will understand this in the later part of the class. I want you to write down a few points here with respect to hot money. We learn about it when we talk about determination of quantity of money. What are the factors? We look at the concept of the relevant, something relevant to hot money. This is in this chapter itself. This is in this chapter called as money. Later in this chapter, we'll come across this. In the chapter called as inflation, we'll come across this concept called as hot money. Okay. I will not be explicitly mentioning it, but it will be a part of that. Also, we'll be learning about this in this chapter called as external sector, the 7th chapter, where we'll be talking about the role of foreign portfolio investment, FPI. So foreign investment, I told you, a specific type of investment. So these are 3 places where we'll be learning even more about hot money. So I'm just introducing the concept to you. Okay. All right. Any questions in what we have discussed so far? Okay, legal tender, first point you want me to explain. Okay. So now legal tender, I defined it in 2 ways. First one, remember it as legally accepted form of making payments. This is what I had written as repaying debt. The second one, modify it and slightly if you want, you can write it as a form of payment which cannot be rejected by a creditor. Cannot be rejected means what? Legally binding. It is legally binding on a creditor. So I'll explain these two once again. So if you are making a payment somewhere, okay, why would you make a payment? They have given you something, in return you are making a payment. So the moment they give you something, you owe that person some money. You are in debt to that person. The moment they, in general, this is how transactions happen. Not always. In general, this is how transactions happen. The people who have some commodity or service, they give it to you and then you make a payment. Okay. So which means that the moment they give their commodity, you owe that person money. You have to make that payment. A legally accepted form of making that payment is legal tender. Whatever is legal tender is the legally accepted form of making payment. So you buy something for 100 rupees and you give a 100 rupee note from your side, from the person who's paying, from their side, the RBI has given a validity or the government has given a validity that you can use this currency to make payment. This is from the side of the person who's making payment. Now from the side of the one who's accepting payment, let's say I am the one who's giving a 100 rupee object, this pen, let's say I produced it and I'm selling it at 100 rupees. I give this pen, they give me 100 rupees. I cannot reject that 100 rupees. I cannot say, no, don't give me 100 rupees, give me 1 kg of rice instead or 2 kg of rice instead. I cannot demand that. I compulsorily have to accept that 100 rupee note that they give, because 100 rupees is how I am pricing this product. I cannot even price this product as this product is equal to 2 kg of rice. I cannot do that. I have to price it in terms of rupee and I have to accept that payment, which is why a form of payment which cannot be rejected by a creditor. Why am I called a creditor? Because I am giving that product and like a loan, I am giving the product. That is still my product as long as you make the payment. So I am a creditor there. All right. Okay, Kishore, what about bank transfer? I will explain bank transfer, but I don't know what you want me to explain over there. If you could expand on that, I'll be able to explain it. Okay, bank money. See, bank money, yeah, no problem. Kishore, bank money is any money which gets its validity from a bank. See, you have an ICICI check. Can you use an ICICI check to make a payment for HDFC Bank? You have an account in an HDFC Bank. Okay. Can you use ICICI checkbook to ask them to make a payment from their account? You cannot, which means that the validity of that currency, is derived not from the government, because if the government is the one giving it, then the check should be acceptable in any bank. It is not the case. Any bank's check should be acceptable anywhere. That is not the case. Here, the bank is the one which is giving validity. So any currency which gains its validity from a bank, a bank's order, a bank's decision, that is what we call as bank money. Examples for that is DD, check, and your debit card, credit card, all those things. Hope you understood this, Kishore. Kishore, looking for a response. All right, great. So we are at a logical point. We'll take a short pause now. We'll start with the introduction to RBI. We'll take a break for 2-3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. We'll come back at 3:30 and we'll resume. 3:25 is the time. 5 minutes from now, we'll resume. Okay. Right. Shall we start? Shall we continue? No response. All right. I assume you're all there. Okay, fine. Good. Finally, I'm getting responses. All right. So next heading for us is RBI, Reserve Bank of India. Now, when we talk about Reserve Bank of India, first some basics. Reserve Bank of India was set up in 1935 based on Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934. Do you are you all aware of something called as the Government of India Act 1935? Either in polity or in history, you would have come across this. If you have not, you will come across this. So, as a part of this, there was a committee which was. You are able to see my screen, right? I have shared. Yeah, Raj. Yes, I have shared the screen. Are you not able to see it? Okay, others are saying it is visible, Raj. Right. Sure, sure, sure. All right. So, as a part of that Government of India Act, um, among the list of suggestions which were given was a suggestion that a bank, a central entity to regulate the banking system should be set up. Something called as a Federal Public Service Commission should be set up. So, all those set of recommendations that were there. So, along with this, one of the recommendations was a central bank in India. So, based on that recommendations of that, I'm not saying that based on the Government of India Act. I'm saying based on the recommendations which were given by the committee which was set up to make changes in the Indian administration, Reserve Bank of India was set up in 1935 based on RBI Act of 1934. Right. So Reserve Bank of India was set up to be the central bank or a banking regulator in India. I'll tell you about the current functions of Reserve Bank of India. It was set up, but when it was set up, it was set up as a private body. It was set up as a private body with government stake. With government stake. What do you mean by government stake? Government had contributed some money. A lot of other private entities also contributed money, which means government had a small share in the ownership of that bank, but it was not a government entity per se. Even though it was a regulator, it was not a government entity. So that was how Reserve Bank of India was. It was in 1949 that when after India got independence, that the Indian government converted it into a 100% government owned body. 100% government owned autonomous body. What do you mean by that? It is an autonomous means that government does not take the day-to-day decisions of this bank. Government is the owner. If the RBI makes a profit, government will take the profit away. If the RBI makes a loss, government will pay for that loss. Government will appoint the people inside RBI, especially the head of RBI. The governor of RBI will be appointed by the government. However, all the internal functioning, all the decision making of the RBI in all those actions, they are independent. The government cannot go and tell them these are things that you should do, these are things you should not do. They do not. Government does not have the right, even though it is 100% owned by the government. It is a 100% owned autonomous body. It also does governance functions. RBI is also like a government in the field of banking. RBI is the one which is governing the banking system. So a lot of times when we refer to government, we are also referring to the RBI. What I mean by it is not under the government, What I mean is that the executive, the Council of Ministers led by the Prime Minister, they do not control what happens in the Reserve Bank of India. Okay, that is what I mean. As a result of this, there have been historically many conflicts between the RBI governors and the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Even as recently as a couple of years ago, when Urjit Patel, who was the governor of RBI, had to resign and go because based on a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding between the government and the RBI. So that happens from time to time. And because it is a government which appoints the governor, at least in that, there is some level of government interference as to who gets to head this organization. Which is why you will find that a lot of times Indian administrative service officers tend to become RBI governors. In an ideal system, who should become RBI governor? Someone from RBI, someone with a lot of banking experience. Those are the people who should get into become the governor of RBI. But because government is the one appointing it, they'll take bureaucrats, not politicians, with people with some level of background, bureaucrats who have previously been a part of the government. After their retirement, they could be appointed as governors of RBI, not while they are in service, but after their retirement, they could be appointed. So in a way, it is government's attempt at making sure that the decisions taken by the RBI governor are in sync with the government, because the people who have been part of the government, they understand the requirements of the government a lot. Okay, that is the idea behind this. This is the Reserve Bank of India. This is the background of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, RBI has other certain functions. So we look at the functions of RBI. Functions of Reserve Bank of India. Some of the key functions, the first one that we can talk about is RBI's role as a manager of currency. Management of currency. Okay, management of currency. Second one, which some people might think the role that I'm going to say now is a part of management of currency, but I'm mentioning it as a separate role. Management of how much currency is in circulation, all those will determine what is the level of inflation. So RBI also has a role of monetary policy framing. Okay. Monetary policy framing. What do I mean by monetary policy framing? Yesterday, I told you about government's role as in fiscal policy. Government's role is fiscal policy. I told you, remember yesterday when I told you about FRBM Act, what is the reason behind or objectives of FRBM committee? And the reason that one of the reasons, you can turn back and look at the page, one of the reasons that I had mentioned was better coordination between fiscal and monetary policy. Fiscal policies of the government, monetary policy, I had told you, is of the RBI. RBI's policy with respect to money management, how much money is there, inflation, controlling inflation. So this talks about controlling inflation. Or managing inflation rather than controlling. Sometimes you want to create inflation. So managing inflation is a better term. Okay. Then what is the role that RBI has? RBI is, in general, RBI is not a bank at all. What is RBI? RBI is a regulator of banks. Regulator of the banking system. But there are some exceptional times when the banks don't have any other option. The bank goes to the RBI and says, please lend me some money. Or the banks cannot find anywhere to deposit their money. Bank goes and says, please accept my deposits so that I can earn some interest out of it. So as in exceptional circumstances, RBI acts as a banker to banks, but only in exceptional circumstances. So we'll call RBI as a lender of last resort, which means when a bank doesn't have any other option, it cannot find money from anywhere else, it requires urgent money. As a last resort, it can go to RBI and say, please lend me some money. But it also, RBI also does a more regular banking function, not for banks, but RBI acts as the banker to government. Yesterday, I think it was in your class. Yes, it was in your class. Someone asked me, why is it that RBI issues government securities on behalf of the government? It is because RBI is the banker to the government. All the money related matters of the government with respect to their accounts, maintenance of their accounts, expenditures, and all those are monitored and tracked by the Reserve Bank of India. It acts as a banker to the government. But the key point to note here is that there is no separate Reserve Bank for union government and some other bank for the state governments, which means that it is not just a banker to the union government, it is a banker to the governments in India, union as well as state. Union as well as state governments, all states. Okay. And finally, the RBI acts as a RBI's role also includes management of foreign exchange reserves. Foreign exchange reserves. If there is excess of foreign currency in the country, if there is a shortfall of foreign currency in the country, all those, and we ask a question, why is there foreign currency needed? Simple answer, for trade and investment related purposes, we need foreign currency. We are going to a foreign market and buying things, we cannot do that with rupees. We'll have to use an international currency. Similarly, we sell our goods in a foreign market, we are not going to get rupees. We are going to get a foreign currency. So what all foreign currency is accepted, what all foreign currency can be used for transactions, all that will be decided and all that extra money will be maintained with RBI. Normal transactions happen at a bank level. So if you have a foreign currency, you go to a bank where there is a foreign exchange department and they'll give you that foreign currency for trade purposes. But if there is a shortfall, if there is excess foreign currency in the country, then Reserve Bank of India manages it through its foreign exchange reserves, which is also called as forex reserves. Forex reserves. These are the six major role that RBI plays. RBI, six major functions of the Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Now, among these six major functions that are there, let me try to put it all in one slide. Yes. Among these six major functions of Reserve Bank of India, let's see. So, management of foreign exchange reserves and about forex reserves is something that we learn in this chapter called as external sector, 7th chapter. We learned there. Banker to the government, we have already learned in the 3rd chapter called as public finance. When we spoke about G6 and T-bills and the monetization of deficit and all those aspects, that is primarily an internal borrowing and ways and means advances, all those. We spoke about RBI's role as a banker to the government of India. Government of states, we don't get into that because it is not relevant from a UPSC perspective. Banker to banks, we learn about it in this chapter called as inflation, the next one. Next chapter that we are going to have called as inflation, we learn about it. As a regulator of banks, we learn about it over multiple chapters. We learn about it in this chapter, a little bit of it. So 4th chapter, money, we learn about, we'll have an idea about it. In the next chapter called as inflation, we'll learn a lot more about it. And also in this chapter called as banking, we'll talk about the RBI regulating. So I am not going to have a separate heading saying that, these are how banks regulate RBI. I'll tell you about various interactions between RBI and banks. You can directly understand that it is under the heading of regulator to banks. We are not going to have any of these as separate headings and learn about it. Here itself, and the second one, monetary policy framing, the name itself says inflation. So we'll be learning about it in this 5th chapter called as inflation. Okay. This is the only thing that we are going to learn in this chapter, management of currency. Okay. I just got a message saying that in public finance, you have never been taught about ways and means advances. Is it true? Can you just check this part? There is a part called as debt capital receipts in your public finance notes. Debt capital receipts. You have been told about borrowings, internal borrowings, external borrowings. And in internal, we have three sources, one from public, one from financial institutions, and the other from RBI. From public, we call it as GSEC. From financial institution, we call it as T-bill. From RBI, we call it as ways and means advances. Was this covered or was it not covered? Yesterday, I checked with you, you said expenditures were done. This is prior to expenditures, this is in receipts. Yeah, I'm checking with other students. A couple of them have responded saying it has not been done. I'm just waiting for a more holistic response. I want everyone to respond. Please check your notes. Is there a heading called as debt capital receipts? I want to know what was done in debt capital receipts. I want to know what were the various headings that you had under debt capital receipts. So have you not been taught about GSECs? Have you not been taught about GSEC? What is GSEC? What is T-bill? That also was not done. Okay. So because you guys said expenditure is done, yeah, market borrowing, short-term borrowing, Harini says it is, that part is done, but it was not explained in any detail, is it? Because we have someone who says that headings were done, not explained, just headings. Okay, okay, okay. So, who will take the responsibility? Raj, because you are the one to point out. Raj, can you just take the responsibility of ensuring? Now, in this class, I'm going in a flow. I don't think I should break it now and explain this concept. Maybe when money gets over, at that point when money gets over, can one of you or many of you take up the responsibility of just reminding me to do, because our next class may be a little later. Next week we will not have a class, next weekend we will not have a class, because I am not available. I'm taking a break from classes and I'm going on traveling home. So when we come for the subsequent class, whenever it is there, can you please mention that this has not been done? I'll after money is over, before I get to inflation, I'll take that extra part in public finance and I'll teach you those things. These internal, external, what are the class? Even in external, there is a classification which there is a good chance that it would not have been done. So in external, about the different types of ways in which you can borrow from outside, historical rate of exchange, historical rate of exchange. Was this done? Historical rate of exchange concept. Okay, all right. So, or even this part, reduced rate of interest. So all these are some headings. So I'll cover this when money is over. Okay. I'm sorry. When you said expenditure, I assumed that this would be done. So this is a slight issue. So I told you, right? Our plan itself was still public finance she would cover, and then I take it up from there. But maybe she would have covered it at a later point towards the end of the class in public finance. She may have given more detail about it, because we follow slightly different structures based on how we find it convenient to cover that topic. So we just had to make that change because of some exigencies at her end. So that is the reason why this has happened. But after money is over, I'll make sure that these topics are done. Just remind me. I'm taking multiple batches. I'm handling simultaneously. I may not quite remember, but when money is over, please remind me. I will finish these topics. You can fill it as part of the public finance or put a box and write it separately. Any of these you can do. I will cover it later. So that role, banker to government, I'll do this later when our money is over. Yeah, I don't want to teach it in between now. It'll create a lot of confusion in your notes. Okay, thanks for pointing that out, Raj. A lot of people would have just remained silent, assuming that they were at fault and they did not write. You pointed it out. It's good. At least we have clarity that it's not been done. Thanks for pointing it out. All right, moving on now. Now we are going to focus on that first role, which is management of currency. But with management of currency, in addition to the RBI, the government also interestingly has a role to play. So we'll talk about, first of all, role of government in management of currency. So role of government in management of currency. Okay. Then we'll get to the key part of role of RBI in management of currency. So what is the role of government and management of currency? First of all, so let's say, okay. First of all, RBI is the most important entity which takes decisions with respect to currency management. But because the RBI itself is owned by the government of India, the government has a role of coordinating with RBI in the monetary decisions. Coordinating with Reserve Bank of India in the monetary decisions that it takes. That is one role that the government has. So the government says, okay, let us do this, let us do this. They have meetings frequently, and in some cases, they have representation. So at the end of the topic called as money, when we talk about terms related, or no, actually at the end of this topic called as inflation, we learn about a concept called as monetary policy committee. So I told you, right, monetary policy, this the second point here, we'll be learning about inflation. At the end of the chapter, we learn about a term, a body called as monetary policy committee, where the government also has a representation. That is an example of coordination with RBI in the monetary decisions. Okay. In addition to this, very interestingly, minting coins. Minting coins is a role that the government of India plays. Coins are not minted by the Reserve Bank of India. Coins are minted by the government of India. Not just that, the 1 rupee note alone is printed by the 1 rupee note is alone printed by the government of India. Now, one question you should not ask now is why? Because honestly, there is no answer anywhere which says why. We can make a assumption because 1935 is when RBI came into existence. So prior to that, maybe most of the currency that was there was either 1 rupee note or Anna, various Anna and various coins that were there. So because the government was doing it, maybe the government continued doing it. Maybe 1 rupee note was the highest denomination at that point of time. So they probably took a decision that whatever the government is doing already, let us not take away that power. Let the government continue doing it. And whatever new currencies are to be printed, let the RBI do it. That could be the reason. Because other than that, I don't see any reason why the government has to do it. But the government is the one which does it. So this is the role of the government. Now that's a very, very minor role. Now come to the major part, which is the role of Reserve Bank of India in currency management. Okay. Role of Reserve Bank of India. Talking about it, we'll talk about number one. Can someone tell me what is the role of RBI in currency management based on what I've told you about the role of government? Can someone take a guess? You know, I'm laying a trap for you, right? Okay, Sri Lakshmi has gracefully come and fallen into the trap. Thank you for that. You knew it even before you typed, didn't you? Helen has also gracefully accepted to fall for the trap. So the answer that I've gotten from two people is printing currency. Yeah. I knew that you would fall for the trap because I specifically said, based on what I have told you with respect to government's role and government's role, I said minting and printing. I knew you would say this. It is not wrong. Okay, so okay, Vamshi has also said the same answer. It is not wrong, but this is not the first thing that they'll do. When I write A, I'm expecting the first thing that they'll do. Okay, RBI is going to print currency. RBI will go to the printing press and wonder what to do now. They'll have no clue. So, what are the major decisions to be taken to begin with? First of all, they should know how much to print. So, they'll have to take a decision of quantity of currency to be printed, quantity of currency required. Okay, let us say they come to a conclusion that 10,000 rupees is required. Now, obviously, you will think the next step is printing the 10,000 rupees, which is again wrong. Why? Because what do you print? How do you print 10,000 rupees? Do you print 2 rupee notes? Do you print 100 rupee notes? Do you print a 10,000 rupee note? We don't know. So you have to take a decision with respect to denominations. Yeah, what are the various denominations which are required? So it is because of this role that recently there was a decision taken, when I say recently, about a year or two ago, that 200 rupee notes need to be introduced into the economy. So denominations. So those decisions have to be taken. So then you will think, obviously, the next step is printing, which is again wrong. Next decision is, how do you differentiate one denomination from another denomination? If you print all the notes to be of the same kind, only the number is different, people may find it very difficult to transact. And you also have to take into account people who are visually challenged. So to differentiate and to make it accessible for everyone, there needs to be a clear size difference between currencies, color difference between currencies. There has to be safety measures to make sure that no one sits at home and takes color printout and uses that as currency. All those have to be ensured, right? With different serial numbers and all those. Those are what we put under the heading of quality of currency. Decisions about the quality of the currency. Next, you will think that, okay, now the role is printing of money. And if you think that you are correct, next role is printing of money, finally. Okay, printing currency. Of course, like I think it was Vamshi who said, yeah, Vamshi said printing except 1 rupee note. 1 rupee note. Okay. E. It doesn't end with printing. So let me ask you a question. Can we say that it is the responsibility of the Reserve Bank of India to bring into circulation the currency notes except 1 rupee note? On the other hand, it is the responsibility of the government of India to bring into circulation the coins and the 1 rupee notes. Am I right? If I have made a correct statement, do you agree with me? Come on, Sri Lakshmi, come on. I'm able to see her on video. That is why I'm referring to her at all times. So the question is a yes/no question. Have I made the right statement? It is the responsibility. It is the responsibility of I'm making a statement. I'm not saying whether it is right or wrong. I'm asking you whether it is right or wrong. The statement is, it is the responsibility of the government of India to circulate coins and 1 rupee note, while it is the responsibility of the Reserve Bank of India to circulate all notes other than 1 rupee notes. Okay, so correct. So again, the answer is no. The answer is no. The statement is wrong. Okay. Circulation is the keyword. I purposely, did not emphasize on the word circulate. The role of circulation lies entirely with RBI. Be it coin, be it 1 rupee note, be it 100 rupee note, whatever it is. Circulation is purely a responsibility of the Reserve Bank of India. So government will print 1 rupee notes, mint all the coins, and they will sell it to the Reserve Bank of India. You would have seen, I don't know whether you have seen, in revenue receipts. Okay, you remember in the budget, non-tax revenue receipts, one of the sources of earning is coinage. One of the sources of earning for the government of India is coinage. So they will mint a 10 rupee coin, which might cost them maybe around 5 rupees. To mint the 10 rupee coin, they may spend 5 rupees, but it is a 10 rupee coin. They will sell it to RBI at 10 rupees, which means what? Our government is earning 5 rupees out of this. So that is a source of profit for the government. They are doing business like that. Okay. So all these notes and coins and all this which government does, government only does the purpose role of minting and printing. They do not circulate it. Circulation of all currencies is an exclusive function of Reserve Bank of India, which is the first one. We are writing ABCD, right? E would be circulation of currency. F, one more function. If there are soiled notes, if there are torn notes, to ensure that the notes are of good quality, maintenance of currency. These are the functions in this order. Plus, in addition, there is also an additional function which RBI does. RBI maintains reserves so that the value of that currency is maintained. Okay, reserve system. So now in this class, what are we going to learn? Maintenance of currency. There is nothing much to learn. We just know that they are going to change the currency from time to time whenever it is required. It is not adding new currency, it is replacing the old currency with new one. It does not increase the quantity of currency that is there. Circulation of currency, we are not going to talk about it much. A little bit, we'll discuss it as part of the class itself. Printing currency, nothing to learn here. But I would suggest that if you are really keen, you can go ahead and look for what are the printing presses of RBI. There is something called as Reserve Bank Bharatiya Note Mudran Private Limited or something like that. So those are organizations under RBI. They do the printing for RBI. Sri Lakshmi, yes, the serial number will change. The old serial number will go. There will be no two notes with the same serial number. Okay, so printing currency, again, printing presses is what is important. So you can learn that on your own. If you want, you can just go to the RBI website and get to know about it. UPSC doesn't focus on that area. Coming to quality of money, once again, from a UPSC perspective, it is not necessary. But if you are preparing for other examinations, like state public service examinations or other bank examinations, sometimes they may ask questions like, what is the logo behind a 50 rupee note? What is the color of a 200 rupee note? They are checking whether you know the actual technical name of the color. You cannot just say orange is the color of 200 rupee note. Orange may be the color, but they may have a specific name for that color, which you will find in the RBI website. What is the name of that particular color? What is the dimension of that note? What is the logo that you have? What is the picture that you have at the back side of it? What are the security features? All these, UPSC doesn't go into these sort of questions, but other examinations do. If you want, that also something you can learn on your own. Now coming to denomination, I'll give you a brief idea about denomination right here, but our focus is primarily going to be on the question of quantity of currency. Okay, quantity of currency. We already saw, right? One of the headings is determination of quantity of currency. So we'll be learning about this. We'll be learning about circulation of money. We'll be learning about reserve systems. Okay, we'll be learning about these reserve systems. We will not be learning about other things. Denomination, I'll just give you a brief idea now. There is an economic theory which is prevailing. I'll tell you about that theory, and it is not that that is the only theory. It is one way one way in which people look at that. The current economic theory, which a lot of people follow, and in India, almost, it seems like that is what we are following almost, is a theory of 1, 2, and 5. What do I mean by this? These currencies, if you have any denomination that you have, it should be in 1, 2, and 5. If you have that, all other can be achieved by a combination of these. Maybe a combination of 3. With just 3 notes or 3 denominations, you'll be able to arrive at any value, is the idea. So if you require a 1 rupee, you have it as a note, legal tender. 2 rupee, you have it as a legal tender. 3 rupees, if you want, you can add 1 and 2, and you will get 3 rupee. 4 rupees, you want 2 plus 2, you will get it. 5 rupee is available as a note. So 6 rupee you want, 5 plus 1 will give you 6. 5 plus 2 will give you 7. 5 plus 2 plus 1 will give you 8. 5 plus 2 plus 2 will give you 9. And there is a 10 rupee note. Okay. With maximum of 3 currency, you should be able to arrive at a value. This is the general theory. And 3 is not a fixed number like that. But with these 3 combinations, 1, 2, and 5, you will be able to arrive at any number. You can also ask with 1 itself, you can arrive at any number, right? But that increases the number of notes that are being used. That is why 1, 2, 5. Similarly, you will find it 10, 20, 50. We don't have a 30 rupee note. We don't have a 40 rupee note, but we have a 50 rupee note. We don't have 60, 70, 80, 90. We don't have. But we do have a 100 rupee note. We have a 200 rupee note. We have a 500 rupee note. Ideally, the currency should end here, but we also introduced something called as a 2000 rupee note, which was a necessity at that time. India introduced a 2000 rupee note out of necessity, not out of any economic theory. What was the necessity? Because demonetization was done. It was very important to remonetize the economy. Think of it. Is it easy to print one 2000 rupee note or 4 500 rupee notes? It's obviously easier to print one 2000 rupee note. So in order to bring in money as quickly as possible, the government had to resort to printing 2000 rupee notes. It is very much possible that 5 or 10 years down the line, the government may completely stop using 2000 rupee notes. In fact, government data shows that over the last 2 years, the RBI has not printed any new 2000 rupee notes, which means that whenever 2000 rupee notes becomes some 2000 rupee note gets soiled, instead of replacing it with a new 2000 rupee note, they'll replace it with 4 500 rupee notes. This also answers Sri Lakshmi's question whether the serial number will be the same. It need not even be the same denomination that they replace it with. That quantity of currency should be there, that's all. Okay. So eventually it looks like we will phase out 2000 rupee note. They will not make a declaration like that in the open, because if that happens, then people will stop accepting 2000 rupee notes. If the government makes a declaration that our long-term objective is to phase out 2000 rupee note, everyone will stop rejecting 2000 because they'll have a fear that one fine day they'll demonetize the currency. There will be a fear like that. So to prevent that, government will not say anything, but there is a possibility that in the future they will, because the whole idea behind demonetization was that, and demonetization of 500 and 1000 was that black money is stored in high denomination currency. Then what is the logic of having a 2000 rupee if that is also a very high denomination currency, right? So it was a necessary move at that time, but it's something that down the line we may find that 2000 rupee is not there anymore. It's a possibility. Okay, so this is a theory that is there. That's all. Okay, that's about denomination. There is nothing much else that we are going to discuss. We are going to keep our focus on the quantity of currency. While learning about that, we'll also learn about the circulation of currency, but we'll keep that to the subsequent class. In today's class, we'll discuss the reserve system and we'll end the class with that. Okay. All right. Now coming to reserve system. Okay, first of all, before India, reserve systems I'll tell you about, then I'll tell you about reserve systems in India. Okay. All right, so we are not talking about reserve system in a commodity money. We are not talking about reserve systems in an account. We are not even talking about reserve system in an economy with convertible representative paper money. We are not talking about it, because in commodity money there is no reserve at all required. In convertible representative paper money, 100% needs to be kept as reserve, because only then when people come, they'll be able to give the gold or whatever commodity that is backing it up there. We are talking about after the introduction of inconvertible representative paper money. After the introduction of this, how does the reserve system work? initially, when the inconvertible representative paper money is introduced through a fiat of the government still is fearful that what if people stop accepting this currency? What if people refuse to accept this currency? The government is trying something new. But what if this currency system fails in about 6 months or 1 year? There is always a fear. So initially, when they launch this system, they will follow a system called as full reserve system. What is a full reserve system? 100% of the currency in circulation is kept in the form of some asset. It could be gold, it could be silver, it could be other government securities. It will be anything other than currency. Let's say 10,000 rupees is circulation in India. 10,000 rupees worth of gold or other commodities will be kept so that even if the rupee system fails, the government can bring in this 10,000 rupees worth of gold and continue with an older system or have that wealth maintained. Okay. But over time, when people started developing trust in the system, government gradually decreased the reserve from 100 to 90 to 80 to 70. Why? Because as per the full reserve system, if 10,000 rupees is to be introduced into the system, 10,000 rupees worth of gold worth 10,000 rupees has to be there in reserve. So if this is to be increased to 20,000, then gold have to be there. What does it mean? 100% of the currency in circulation has to be kept as reserve. But the government found it very difficult because the quantity of gold is limited and the requirement for money may be increasing as the economy increases. So what happened? They kept on decreasing and it became a proportional reserve system. Proportional reserve system. So in a proportional reserve system, a fixed percentage, for example, it may be a value like 50%. So if 20,000 rupees is in circulation, gold worth rupees 10,000 needs to be maintained. To increase this to 40,000, only gold worth 20,000 is required. Earlier system, to have 40,000 rupees circulating, they had to have gold worth 40,000. Now only 50% of the value of this needs to be kept as reserve. Okay. In India, when we followed, when RBI was set up in 1935, we initially followed the proportional reserve system because the concept of money was already there among people. There was no need for a 100% reserve system. In fact, in India, we were following a proportion of 40%. So whenever the British government in India increased the money supply, 40% equivalent of that they maintained in other reserves of gold or silver or other things. Have you understood this or is there any question? I'm assuming that if you have any questions, you will ask because I'm not getting any response from anyone. Sure, I will answer that. I'll answer that. All right, no questions then. So this is the proportional reserve system. But even with the proportional reserve system, right? So even with a couple of people have asked questions, I'll answer that. You will get your answer as we go on. So even with the proportional reserve system, okay, 40% has to be maintained as a reserve. Now, why is reserve maintained in the first place? Reserve is maintained because the government believes the people trust in the government, trust the government. But what if there is some level of uncertainty? some level of lack of trust which develops over a period of time. And especially if you look at it during the late 1800s, when or during the early 1900s, early 20th century, there was a lot of war. Governments were changing very frequently. One regime went away, another regime came. Communism as a concept came. Socialism as a concept evolved. Capitalism as a concept was losing its popularity. So there was a general possibility of mistrust among various governments, among the people and the government at various points there. Okay, it was a possibility that eventually people will lose trust in the government, was a possibility. So that is why they kept on maintaining this sort of a system. And whenever something is introduced for the first time, there's always some level of uncertainty, because government is always ready to go back to the old system if the new system fails. Okay? That is the reason why this reserve system existed. But once it becomes very, very certain that there is no requirement for reserve, there is some level of trust and there is no requirement for reserve, the government adopts a new system. There is a problem with this, even with this proportional reserve system. It means that every time you are increasing the money supply, an equivalent or some percentage of that has to be increased in the reserves as well. The government may not have the ability to keep that much money in reserves, that much, not money, the quantity of goods in terms of reserves. So finally, when there is a level of stability is achieved in a country, they'll move to a system called as minimum reserve system. Okay, minimum reserve system. This is what India follows right now. When I say right now, from 1956 onwards, India has been following this. From 1956 onwards, India has been following this, in which a fixed value of valuables or assets, fixed value of assets. What assets? Financial assets. Examples of financial assets: gold, silver, other governments' securities, other government, other governments' securities. Okay. See, what are these securities? You will have a better understanding once I explain GSEC to you, which I'll do at the end of money. The other government securities. A fixed value of financial assets is maintained as a reserve. Maintained as reserve. In India's case, it's very funny. India's minimum reserve was maintained as rupees 515 crore rupees. Right? When I say rupees, obviously it will not be in money. It will not be in rupees, because rupees is what we are trying to protect. In case rupees fails, is what is the question. So obviously the reserve will not be in rupees. It will be in the form of gold, silver, or other government securities. Gold, silver, and other government securities of a value of 515 crore is kept as a reserve, but a fixed value. Government can increase the quantity of money available to any level and just maintain a fixed amount as reserve. So which means that these reserves do not have much of a significance, because if the currency system fails, 515 crore is not going to help anyone. We might have a participant in our class who has assets worth 515 crore. That is the level of wealth that people have right now. All the scams that are happening in the country, they are like 10 lakh crores, and that is how the scams are happening. Look at 515 crore. It is just like loose change for those people. For some of us, we will probably never see crore in our life, but I'm saying in the larger context, 515 crore is not a significant amount at all. Okay, so that is about the various resource systems, and this minimum resource system is what India is following, has been following since 1956. But in the Indian context, reserve is not very important from money perspective, but there are other reserves. This is not necessarily with respect to the money system, but because we are on the topic of reserves, I'll also talk about other reserves with RBI. Not directly related to the money reserves. So what are the other reserves? I already told you about something called as foreign exchange reserve. I told you in earlier functions of RBI to maintain a forex reserve. What is this? To ensure stability of trade. I'm just writing this much. More about forex reserves, we'll deal with in external sector. To ensure stability of trade, or be very specific, of international trade, because domestic also is called trade, of international trade. To ensure stability of international trade. The RBI also maintains something like revaluation reserves. What are revaluation reserves? See, the government of the RBI and the government of India maintains some level of assets in the form of foreign currency. Some assets in the form of gold. I told you here, right? Gold, silver, other government securities, foreign currency assets, and all those. There is a possibility that the value of gold may decrease. Okay? There is a possibility that the value of gold may decrease. Gold, which we are holding as asset, may lose its value. So to protect against that, as an insurance, we might want to keep some in the form of silver, but the value of silver itself may fall. To protect that, we might want to keep some in the form of dollar. And to protect dollar's loss, we might want to keep some in the form of euro. To protect euro's loss, we might want to keep some in the form of gold. Circular manner. I know that it is circular, but revaluation reserve is any reserve which is kept with RBI to protect a possible loss of value of some other reserve. For example, like forex reserves or minimum reserve system, we are maintaining some reserves. The value of that reserve may fall. To maintain that, to ensure that that is countered, we will have a basket of a few currencies which is maintained purely to ensure that the value fall doesn't affect us significantly. That is called revaluation reserves. To ensure stability of the value of other reserves. Maintained in the form of financial assets. In the form of financial assets. Now, what are financial assets? Take a look at the arrow above. Gold, silver, other government securities. That is what we mean by financial assets. Okay, these are some examples of reserves, foreign exchange reserves and revaluation reserves. But there is no limit to the number of reserves. There is actually, but it is a long list of reserves which RBI maintains. We will not be able to go through every single one. So I'm just giving you a couple of examples. Whenever you come across a new type of reserve in the newspaper, make a note of it and add it to the area here, saying these are also some types of reserves. Just read up a little, you will have an idea. If you don't get an idea, immediately drop a mail to me. After doing a bit of reference, if you are not able to understand, drop a mail to me. I'll be able to clarify it for you. Okay. So that is how we add on to the topic here. Okay. Now we are at a logical endpoint. If I start a topic now, it might take, say, 10 minutes to finish discussing that. Should I take, say, 10 to 15? I'll be very honest, 10 to 15 minutes. So it will go till 4:40. And since I am not the one who's starting the next class, I cannot even guarantee to you that I'll give an extra 10 minutes there. Is it okay? Are you comfortable if your break reduces to 20 minutes? Is that okay for you? CRR/SLR will come under inflation. We'll talk about that later. It is a different kind of reserve. Those are not maintained by RBI. Those are maintained by the banks. That will not come here. That will come in a different place. So please answer that. Is it okay if your break happens to reduce by 10 minutes? If you are okay, then I'll proceed. If not, I'll end the class 5 minutes early, because I don't want to start the next class, the next topic, which is determining the quantity of money. You tell me. And I hope, Kishore, I hope your questions are answered. Currently, how much percentage I answered? How actually inconvertible money works? Our rupee is inconvertible money. That is how it works. It works purely based on the trust in the government. And then Archana is saying, sir, in fiat money, if trust is the important factor, then how come reserves have to be kept? Because the government doesn't know for sure if the people will trust in the future also. But once the trust is sort of established, then minimum reserve is sufficient. Archana, hope that answers. So because no one is answering, I don't know whether to take up or not. Are you hesitant to tell me not to extend? Okay, so we have already spent about a minute and a half waiting for you to respond. I don't think it's already 27. I'll end the class now. Just 3 minutes. I don't want to take up the topic now. You take a break. You come back. Your class will be at 5 o'clock with the next topic. I'm done for today with this class. So we will meet once again in a couple of weeks time. Next week we'll not be having economics because I'm not available. The week after that probably we'll have a class. Right. If you have any further questions, you can ask me. Else you can disconnect and leave. Thank you. Welcome, Raj. Welcome, Ashwin. Yes, Kishore, go on.
Sure. One small query here regarding the convertible and inconvertible. As you are telling, the inconvertible money is an Indian rupee, but it is also convertible now when we are going for exchanges like Indian rupee to dollar.
Yeah. What are you exchanging it for? See, you cannot take. First of all, when we say convertible and inconvertible, the question is whoever is issuing that currency, what is it that they are guaranteeing you? That is the question. Okay. So in convertible representative paper money, the ones who are issuing the currency are telling you that if you don't believe in this currency or if you don't want to hold this currency, you bring it to us, the issuers, we will convert it into the gold or whatever they say. We will convert it to gold or silver and we'll give it to you. In inconvertible representative paper money, you can never convert it. The issuing authority will not convert it into anything. The issuing authority is only promising we will ensure that you get value in the economy. Now, within the economy, you can use the money for various things. You can use it for buying goods and services. That is also conversion, right? Or you can transfer it for, change it for another currency. You can even buy gold with it. Those are decisions that you take as a consumer. But the issuer of the money is not assuring you of any conversion. That is what we mean by convertible and inconvertible.
Oh, the Indian
Sure?
money is yeah, got your point.
Yeah, okay. All right, Kishore. Okay, we have about 10 people left. If you don't have any further questions, you can disconnect and leave. There's 4 people left. Any questions? Tanuja, Janani, Kishore, Raj? Oh, Tanuja is still waiting. I'm sorry, I missed the chat because the chat was being covered by this. Okay, Raj, if you don't have, you can disconnect. I'm sorry. Tanuja, your question is, can I explain Forex reserves and revaluation reserves again? Yes, definitely. Okay, so Forex reserves is something, see, importers and exporters in the country plus investors. Investors could be Indian people who go and invest abroad or foreigners who invest in India. So investors from foreign or Indians who are working abroad. Okay, Indians working abroad or foreigners working in India. All of these are examples of people who deal with two currencies. A foreigner working in India earns an Indian rupee, has to transfer some foreign currency to his or her home country. An Indian working abroad earns in foreign currency and has to send money into India, Indian currency. An importer has to convert Indian money into foreign currency to go to the foreign market and buy things. An exporter sells commodities in the foreign market and earns foreign currency, but cannot use the foreign currency in India, has to give it to a bank and exchange it. Similarly, with other entities, investors also. Okay, all this requires a certain supply of foreign currency in India. So, who is the one which ensures that sufficient quantity of foreign currency is available? Not too much, not too less. Who ensures that? The Reserve Bank of India ensures it. How do they ensure that? By maintaining a basket of reserves, saying that I will maintain it without using. In case you are in trouble, you come to me, I'll give you out of this. So it is like having a savings as a reserve on the side. That is what is foreign exchange reserve. This ensures that there is stability of trade. There is sufficient quantity of foreign currency available. And coming to revaluation reserves, Tanuja. So by revaluation reserve, what we mean is that, okay. So by revaluation reserve, what we mean is there are reserves like foreign exchange reserves and other minimum reserve system and all those that are maintained. There is a possibility that if it is gold, if all the reserve is maintained in gold, let's assume, there is a possibility that the value of gold itself will decrease, right? You see in the newspaper, someday the value of gold increases, someday the value of gold decreases. So if the value of gold decreases, then a reserve itself will lose value. To guard against it, we tend to maintain reserves in other forms. To protect gold, we may keep it in the form of dollar. If it's in the form of dollar, we may want to keep it as euro, which is European currency, to protect that dollar. Dollar's value may fall, but euro's value may not fall. Okay, so a reserve maintained to protect other reserves, to protect the value of other reserves, that is called as revaluation reserves. Revaluation means change in value of the other reserves. To maintain, to guard against that, a reserve is kept. That is a revaluation reserves. I hope this is clear, Tanuja. All right, welcome, Tanuja. All right. I see Rini probably has joined in now. Were you there throughout the class, Rini? You didn't seem to participate much. Normally you do. Okay. So anyway, we are done with the class. I'll disconnect. Thank you so much.